Bill and Brian here with Energy Road for another week of Refining Reality. Refining Reality is associated with a family of podcasts called Oklahoma Gas and Global Network. I tell you what, the Oil and Gas Global Network is the place where you go to find out things. They have multiple podcasts. They have been doing podcasts for over 11 years. So it's not a new thing for them.
No.
And so we are happy to be associated with them. And so if you want to learn more about the oil and gas industry, hey, listen, go over to OGGN, find a podcast that's in your area, and let's put a little oggin in your noggin. So
a little oggin.
What are we talking about today?
So what we were going to talk about today is refining reality, actually refining reality.
There you go.
Yeah.
That works.
Why are we talking about real estate? Why are we talking about real estate? What do they always say in real estate? What is the common thing?
Always location.
Okay, so it's kind of like
that last one is for the New Orleans people. It's location.
Well, that's just a little lagniappe for all the Cajuns out there.
Yeah.
And if you're not Cajun, you won't know what lagniappe is. If you are Cajun, you will. So in real estate terms, they often talk about location. Location is the key metric. As a matter of fact, talking about real estate, did you ever hear the famous story for Ray Kroc on McDonald's where he met with...
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, where he met with, I think it was like Harvard.
They got a movie out now.
Harvard or Princeton or something like that, MBA students.
Yeah, one of the Ivy Leagues, yeah.
Yeah, and asked him, what business am I in? And they were like, well, you're in the hamburger. Nope, I'm in real estate, and I just happen to have a business on top of it. So it's brilliant. And location matters when you're talking about real estate. Now, when it comes to energy, it is important to look at where that real estate is because then you have commodity flow. Like, how does crude oil typically move? What are ways that crude oil moves? What are some of those ways, Bill?
Well, it's truck, pipeline, ship. I mean, that's really basically what you do. It's either wheel, steel, or water.
So truck, pipeline, ship. So basically you have tanks of oil somewhere. And
right.
a truck takes oil out of the tank, puts it in a truck. So then the truck goes down the road. Sometimes the truck takes that crude from that tank, goes in the truck to inject it into a pipeline. And sometimes that truck takes it to another tank, and that tank is a loading spot for ships. So it kind of depends on that logistics of where they are. But now we're going to kind of link this together because part of the reason that we're talking about this is, let's be clear. A lot of people talk about consumption of crude oil. Crude oil is not consumed. We don't put it in our cars. We don't put it in airlines. We don't put it in fuel engines or farm equipment. Crude oil goes into refineries, and refineries separate the crude oil molecules into different products. And those products include gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, waxes, asphalts, all kinds of different things. And if you're actually in the process of petrochemicals or refining, having your equipment have uptime and making sure that you're getting all the products that you can and all the throughput that you can is super critical to your business. And that's part of the reason this podcast is sponsored by TracerCo. And they're a global leader in diagnostic technologies. We've seen some of the things. It's fascinating. Isn't it, Bill? Like,
yeah.
Like, what does it look like?
So I tell you what, it's not unlike going to the doctor. And they are the doctors for your refinery or for your process or thing. They can actually see what's happening like an X-ray.
Mm-hmm.
Literally like an X-ray in your processes and help you either find a problem, refine the process to where you make more out of that vessel or process or tank, or they can help you plan your downtime to where you're not wasting a bunch of time trying to find problems.
Right.
So there's lots of ways to get value through TracerCo. And so you need to schedule some time with them, talk to one of their reps, and find out what they can do for you and your processes, because this is something that is there. I mean, they wouldn't exist if they didn't save people money. If
Yeah.
they didn't make people money, they wouldn't exist.
Right. Right. And part of the reason that their process and technology is so critical is I remember that we had a condensate stabilization facility that basically separated things that the crude from the lighter ends of the gas stuff. Well, the problem was is that it was only running at 60% of the capacity, and we had more production than we could do that. Well, their only choice was to actually shut it down, which meant we had to shut in production, lay down all the equipment on the field, and figure out what was going on inside of it. Their process allows kind of an MRI to see what's happening while it's running. So that's what's really kind of cool about it. But anyway, if you run a petrochemical or a refining business, follow up with TracerCo. So that's one key thing. But we're talking about refineries. So refineries and locations, right? That's what we really want to take a look at. So
So
let's
the main thing here is that the refineries weren't planned.
hmm.
The
Okay.
original refineries went to where the crude oil was,
Okay.
not to where the people were. It's sort of like baking your bread in the wheat field.
Oh
That's
wow.
sort of what that's sort of where you're talking about it. So when you start looking, the early refineries were where the crude oil was. By the way, it's really called oil. We call it crude oil because it's not refined. A lot of times you'll find the same term in a lot of other processes. The one that comes to mind immediately is helium. When you find raw or crude helium, when it becomes refined helium, becomes a purity product. So what originally started was it was happening in the field. So the Gulf Coast had a lot of oil in it. The mid-continent had a lot of oil in it. And these were all shallow wells because I mean, we're talking 100 years ago. They were shallow wells. We didn't have technology to go very deep. A lot of these wells were less than 1,000 feet deep.
Mm-hmm.
And so as that developed, the refinery developed there. And then we started building pipelines to take them to where we needed to go with the refined products. So as time progressed, we try to make things more and more efficient. And so refineries started closing. I think at its peak, we had 270 something refineries.
So
We're
essentially
currently at about
it started here and then we started laying pipelines down here.
actually, no, it started in Pennsylvania.
Started in Pennsylvania. Okay. So up here, probably this one.
Yeah, right. And so, because that's where the crude oil was actually
Oh, yes.
beginning.
Way
So you
back
had
when.
that, and then I mean, we're talking about in the 1800s now. Just keep remembering that.
Right.
And so when and in fact, is one of them was in what's the name of that? New Bradford, Pennsylvania,
Mm-hmm.
which is just on the border of New York on the very west side.
Okay.
And so, and you ask, how do you know that? Because I've been there. They got a great oil museum in Bradford, Pennsylvania. And side note, they also have, that's where Zippo lighters are, and they have the Zippo lighter museum in Bradford,
Oh,
Pennsylvania.
yeah. I know you like to collect those.
Yeah, exactly. So the refineries were originally located in the field with where the oil was. But as oil plays would play out, they started trying to see if they could centralize these. And by the strangest possible you could ever imagine, that place ended up being Cushing, Oklahoma.
Wow.
And that's where all the pipelines started coming to Cushing. A lot of people don't realize one of the largest places to store crude oil is in Cushing, Oklahoma. If you ever been to go into Cushing, Oklahoma, you would go, why? You know? And by the way, they have a good oil museum there too. But in fact, there's a well there that has been producing since 1912. right there inside the city limits of Cushing, Oklahoma.
Wow.
And so
Wow.
right now, I think Cushing's capacity is just right at 70 million barrels a day of storage is in Cushing, Oklahoma.
Oh my gosh.
70 million barrels of total storage.
That is
And so,
incredible.
so to give you an idea, that would be roughly 3.5 days, maybe close to 4 days of the total U.S. consumption.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
that's a lot of storage, folks, if you didn't know. Now, there are bigger storage fields now on the Gulf Coast because of this that's going on down there. But so originally, refineries started out in the field, and as they begin to, I guess, become more efficient, they started going to smaller, bigger refineries in more intense locations. Now, a lot of the Gulf Coast was because of the Gulf Coast oil, but it's also because our demand grew past our ability to produce.
Mm-hmm.
And so we
So
were
we started
importing oil.
import. Yeah.
And so that was where we're in the 70s. And so that's why those refineries there, which, by the way, the last greenfield refinery we built in the United States was in 1974, I think.
Was it
It was
74 or
70.
77?
No, it wasn't 77. I think it was either 74 or
Okay.
76.
All right.
That's the last. So think about that, folks. That's 50 years ago.
Yeah.
It's been 50 years since we built the new refinery.
Wow.
And so these refineries have added on. We are refining more product using half the amount of refineries we had before.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how efficient the system has become.
Right.
And so,
Some of those refineries expanded, added new units, and more efficient or better connected. This gets back to the location. The
right,
better connected that they are, or the more that they were close to supply or close to demand, or ideally somewhere where they could triangulate both, like get supply off pipeline and be close to demand, because there is a lot of demand in the Gulf Coast. So
right.
there's quite a bit of product demand.
And so now we're seeing a new thing where we're seeing refineries close because of regulatory
Mm-hmm.
constraints.
Yep.
So the last two refineries to close, two big refineries to close, was in California. And that was because they just could not compete with the regulatory framework that California has put in.
And
The fact is,
Per the EIA, our utilization rate right now is 95%, which is at a
we talked about that
historic.
utilization rate before because
Uh-huh.
I don't know if it includes the
Shut the
downtimes.
shut. Oh yeah. But here's the operable capacity per the EIA is 18 million barrels a day. This used to be over 19, but now it's down to 18 because we have had some retirements, and there's actually more retirements that are probably scheduled. So
I think we peaked somewhere around 21 or 22.
is it okay? I haven't looked at it over history. Over the last several years, I've looked at it and it's been hanging around 19 because we haven't added or retired that many. So,
And a lot of them become. I mean, they don't last forever.
mhm.
And they are plants. They don't last forever.
And
And so
if you're actually monitoring crude oil markets, refined product markets, this is Rogue Radar. This is a resource that gives you everything into one page to where you can just look up a quick info like that and really understand how much we're refining and how much we're utilizing and commercial crude stocks, gasoline, diesel, products supplied, distillates, and everything that you want to know, including OPEC down here. So you can actually see all of this daily. Not all the information is released daily, but you can view all that daily. So if you had a question, you can answer it. So we kind of started with Pennsylvania, moved to the mid-continent. Now we're at the Gulf Coast where on the history lesson is because our demand started outstripping how much crude oil supply we had, right?
right. And so what we've seen is now that we have these huge complexes, especially like in the Gulf Coast. And by the way, we did close a refinery in Pennsylvania. I don't think Pennsylvania has any more refineries.
Hmm.
I don't know if you remember one because Delta Airlines bought it for a while,
Oh,
and
yes.
then they had
Yes.
a fire and shut it down. Yeah. And so, and they're all different sizes, all different shapes. you know, and some refineries are tuned to put out products. They all get all the products all at the same time. If you're trying to get gasoline, you're going to get gasoline, you're going to get diesel, you're going to get all the products when you refine it. You can tune a refinery to where you can get more of one of the products, but you can't stop it from making any of the products.
Right.
So you
Right.
get everything every time.
Yep.
And so that's why when you start seeing it, start looking at crack spreads, we look at the crude oil barrel versus gas and diesel. But
Mm-hmm.
there's other products that come out of there, and we're gonna spend some time talking about. And we have talked a little bit about in our Content Matters episode about what comes out of the backside of the barrel.
Right.
And so the location is very important. The Bill Shanahan prediction on this is that we're going to move back to the field
Interesting.
because the markets have dispersed a little. And when you have a high concentration of people, it's hard to put those kind of processes in that high concentration of people.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
And so I think we'll see a move
So
back
kind
toward the
of kind of less midstream in between, and the production and refining get close, and then it's product logistics shift,
right.
right?
I mean, so here's a good example. Permian has a lot of drilling going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
They got a lot of trucks. They burn a lot of diesel. But here's what they do. They take the crude oil they get out of the ground in the Permian, they ship it to a refinery, and then ship back the diesel to be burned where the crude oil was at.
So they have more crude than this capacity over here. So a lot of that
Right.
crude gets shipped down to the Gulf Coast, refined, and then they ship back diesel.
Right.
Wow. That's crazy. That is
Yeah.
crazy.
So I think we'll be seeing some of that move in the larger fields.
Yeah.
We'll see some of those refineries. And and by the way, in case you didn't pick up on that prediction, I predicted we're going to be building new refineries.
Yeah. I think it needs to happen because if you think about it this way, we were always producing crude oil the same way that we always had until we invested in new technology on directional drilling or horizontal drilling,
Right.
taking us away from verticals along with hydraulic fracturing. So those two combined expanded how much production that we could make. And now the United States produces more crude oil than any country in the world. And that's
Right.
crazy to think about. It's crazy to think about because we've always been in a unique position of importing, and we still import. And one more thing that I'll show on our Rogue Radar product is, and Rogue Radar is only $89 a month. So if you follow energy markets, it is the cheapest investment that you can make. But what we do is we track how much crude we're importing, how much we're exporting. And right now, and we're recording this on June 12th, right now we're importing about 5.9 million barrels and we're exporting about 4.8 million barrels. So we dropped this past week on how much we're exporting. A lot of the reason that we're exporting right now is because of macro events in
Right.
the world. The Strait of Hormuz is shut in, so there's more crude that is needed. So,
And if you want to know more about that, you can look at our episode on Content Matters. We talked
yes,
a little bit about that
yeah,
in that. And so all this is to basically say this: the industry has to change,
mm-hmm,
and people accept that. But here's what happens: here at Energy Road, we believe if you change nothing, nothing changes.
right,
And so, in order to change the industry, you got to change how you're doing things. And I think we're going to see some of that coming on. And so, that's where we talk about location. It does matter. You want to be as close to the market as you can without disturbing the market. You also want to be close to the source. And the shorter that supply chain is, the more value there is in that. And
mm-hmm,
for your consumers, what that means is the price will go down.
right. Right. You're
So,
exactly right. Well,
and so,
here's the main thing to consider is where crude oil is supplied from is in the producing fields, which again we will, let me do this, do one more little screen share because this way we can walk and talk because we like talking with pictures. And if you need interactive analytics, statistics on fundamentals, supply, demand, imports, exports, storage, stocks, and you want to evaluate that, you can go to energyrogue.com and sign up for Rogue Edge. It's a little bit more expensive than Rogue Radar, but it gives you 150 interactive charts on supply, demand, imports, exports for oil, natural gas liquids, refined products, and electricity. But essentially, when you look at the country, we have producing basins here, 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 and Bakken here, and some in Utah Rockies. So those are pretty much, and all the areas that I just circled, you'll notice had none of the big circles. And the big circles mean it's a big refining complex. Right. So what this means is that there might be new refineries in the Mid-Continent, in the Rockies, and close to Canada, and then in the Northeast, and then over in the Permian. So that is actually Bill Shanahan's prediction. I think that he may be onto something there. So time will tell. But listen, drop us a comment. Let us know what you think. And the main thing that we wanted to drill home is that the refining complex is the conversion from crude oil into refined products, and where that is today might not be where it is tomorrow. So it's changing, it's evolving, and it's always getting more efficient in some way or another.
Right. And realize that what we're looking for now is economic efficiency, not necessarily processing efficiency. Mm-hmm. I got a whole nother soapbox speech on that. And so we'll do that some other time. So listen, folks, we appreciate you tuning in. Just remember, go to OGGN, looking for other things. You're going to find some people who may or may not agree with us. And they have every right to be wrong. So
I like that. Well, listen, folks, thanks so much. Thanks for tuning in. Drop us a comment. Let us know how we're doing. And we look forward to seeing you probably when are we going to see him?
We'll see him in another week.
In another week.
So tune in to Refining Reality.
Yep. So thanks so much, folks, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks for listening to OGGN, the world's largest and most listened to podcast network for the oil and energy industry. If you like this show, leave us a review and then go to OGGN.com to learn about all our other shows. And don't forget to sign up for our weekly newsletter. This show has been a production of the Oil and Gas Global Network.